So let's go to Michael first. Michael Friedman, are you on?
I am on. Hi.
Okay, hallelujah.
Yes.
The first word, hey, we're in business.
Yes, the first thing that is going well. I'm Michael Friedman. I'm co-captain of the Team North Carolina, and we'll be talking shortly about many very, very good opportunities we have to make a difference in North Carolina.
Okay, and Vicki.
Hi, I'm Vicki Shulkin, and I'm the co-captain, and you just heard all I would say, so I'll just wave.
Okay, and now let's go to Adele.
Yes, hi, I'm Adele Dari, and I'm one of the original members of 31st Street, and I recently moved to Boulder, Colorado, so I'm continuing with 31st Street and my work from here, and I'm very interested in the West and the Midwest, so I picked Iowa to work with, and I'm really excited. I think it's a state that I think Greenberg has a good chance of winning, and so I'm really looking forward to working with the team that decides to join me. Thanks.
Okay, and John.
Hi, I'm John Medalia, and I'm going to be leading the Alaska team. We're going to be doing calls for Al Gross, who is running for Senate, and he has a very good chance of flipping the state, which is going to be so important. It's a very small state, 588,000 voters. So every vote we can swing makes a big difference. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen. And let's get started with talking about these voter outreach teams. We can't go canvassing, so this is what we're doing instead. So let me first go to some answers to questions that many have already asked me in emails. First, you do not need to be a member of 31st Street to join a team. This is, come one, come all. You don't even have to have any connection to a state. People have written in and said, oh, I'm from North Carolina, I used to live there, and can I join the team? Well, you sure can, and you can also join if you've never been in North Carolina or any of these other states in your life. You can join more than one team or join more than one activity in Team North Carolina, which has numerous activities. And we actually welcome you joining Team Pennsylvania because it's doing letter writing, and then adding in activity in one of the other teams. All the teams have captains, and each will keep you in the loop with emails. They'll orient you. They'll host debriefings each week if you want to attend and talk about what you've been thinking and feeling and experiencing on the phone or texting or whatever. And they're going to post resources for you to prepare you, scripts and information on voting and all that. There will still be a Sunday fieldwork email, and that's going to offer the full range of activities across the teams and beyond the teams. So, you can still make choices independently. We'll remind you repeatedly today that if you want to sign up for a team and you haven't done so already, you do it this evening when you get the fieldwork email from me. Now, some of you may not be getting that fieldwork email right now. You either get it in a MailChimp form or you get it from me directly from this email address. So if you want to sign up or you want to just get that fieldwork email this afternoon after the Zoom, just send me a short and sweet email. Don't include other questions. We just want to get you on the mailing list. If you have other questions, put them in an email that I can get to a little bit later after I get this fieldwork email out tonight. Okay, our agenda today, we're going to talk first about Team Pennsylvania. Obviously, those times are a little bit off, but about 10 minutes. Team North Carolina, about 15 minutes. Team Iowa, about 10 minutes. Team Alaska, about 10. If you've got questions, please type them in the chat, and the team captains will try to answer the questions along the way as time permits. And then at the end, we'll continue with general Q&A as long as you have questions. So you can drop off the Zoom. If you've heard what you came for, you're welcome to just drop off and not listen to the other presentations. So we're going to start with Team Pennsylvania. And do we have Tom back on yet? Okay, well, I'm going to fill in for Tom.
Okay, so Julie, it's
Yeah.
frozen. It's frozen at 100 again. So that's maybe why Tom's not on.
Yeah, he may not. Okay, well, we'll manage.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks for. Okay, so this is a vote by mail encouragement process.
Julie, do you want me to drop off so Tom can get on?
It's too complicated.
Too complicated. Let's not worry about it.
Okay.
He'll forgive
Nice
us.
offer. Nice offer.
This is a project we're doing in conjunction with a state Senate candidate, George Scott. He's in a district right around Harrisburg. It's a very important district because it's got a Pennsylvania House seat that could flip, his state Senate seat that could flip, a U.S. House seat that could flip, and of course, we want presidential, the electoral college votes for Biden and Harris. We're sending letters. We have sent a bunch of letters to about 25,000 voters in the district. They likely vote for Democrats, but they don't vote very on every election. They vote infrequently, and they're not already registered to receive a mail-in ballot. This is a new program in Pennsylvania, and it's got a very low proportion of people who have already applied to get mail-in ballots. We're really trying to boost that percentage quickly. So we have sent a bunch of letters, as I said. These are the first batch of letters with George Scott, where we sent it was about 10,000 voters in this first batch, application, a hard copy application for a vote by mail application, or hard copy application to vote by mail, and also a link to how they could do it online. We estimate that this enabled about 1,000 more mail-in applications to be submitted than we would have expected otherwise. And this last batch that we're taking signups for now, we're going to send the application we sent before and a stamped envelope addressed to the County Board of Elections. And we hope that this will really move people to apply. This will lead to, we hope, to 2,000 more submitted applications than otherwise. So what do people get when they sign up? They get a guide, a full guide to how to do this. They get a letter, and if you look at the letter, this is not quite the text of the printed letter that we will get, but you can see that the letter writer adds in a second paragraph with a personal message. There's the application. The letter writer is filling out one in-kind contribution form for the cost of the materials that they've printed and the postage. They also will include an envelope that, as I mentioned, includes the stamped addressed envelope. Several weeks into the project, they'll get the names of 50 or addresses for 50 households with 1 or 2 voters. There's the outside envelope with a little tagline that informs the recipient that there's something important inside, and there's the inside envelope. We have local collection sites. This project will end by October 3rd. And for people who want to do this project who live outside the DC metro area, they just package up the letters and mail them to Harrisburg. Anybody can join, and you can request more than 50 voter addresses. After October 3rd, when these letters are turned in and ready to be mailed by the campaign, we'll offer you some other voter outreach activities in Pennsylvania, or you can join another team. So if you want to sign up for this tonight, as I said, you can do so in my email. And if you don't get my email already, you can see my email address that you want to. Write to me. You write to me after this Zoom, and I'll put you on the list. So let's just, are there any questions that anybody has before we move on to talking about the next team?
There's a question for you in the chat, Julie.
Yes, in fact, if let me just stop my share. It's sort of awkward. Okay, so yeah, if someone can go through the and tell me if there's a question in the chat.
Here's one, Julie. Do you get the actual letters and envelopes, or do you print them yourself?
All the materials have to be printed yourself. So you get them attached to their PDFs that you get attached to an email, and you buy some envelopes, buy some stamps, print the materials. If you have difficulty printing, we can offer some assistance with that. But people have also gone to, I think, Office Depot and Staples and had materials printed as well.
So
And they
another-
ask you not to use US flag stamps. There was a question on that.
Yes.
People tend not to open the letters with US flag stamps.
Yes, we provide all that in a guide, all the information about using commemoratives and not flag stamps, which are
So-
not appealing.
Here are two other questions.
Thank you.
How long is the letter writing effort for Pennsylvania? Is sending mail-in ballots the best way to get people to vote in Pennsylvania?
Well, given that Pennsylvania only has, for poll voting, same day voting, November 3rd. That's it. There's no early voting polls. Mail-in ballots are really the best way to go, providing they're mail-in with enough time. And so we're sending this out and the letter will urge people to act promptly, both to apply for the ballot and to mail in the ballot. And that's what, is the optimal, it's not the perfect, but the optimal solution to voting during a pandemic in the counties in question.
So the next question, and this is the last one I have, do you, are the letters being sent to the same people we wrote to earlier? And then they want your email in the chat.
I just put her email in the chat.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, they're going to the same voters, except we're taking out the names and addresses of people who have already applied. So you can imagine the campaign is doing a lot of work, the George Scott campaign, to check who has applied for a mail-in ballot and then remove them from the universe of voters who are going to get these letters. So this is another touch, and we have research from the Voter Participation Center that you actually do get additional increments of impact with additional touches, certainly to 4, sometimes to 8 touches of one of these voters. It may cost a lot more to get that increment, but you do get it. So we do think that this is a worthwhile investment of time and energy. We think that this is, as you may have seen on the slide, sort of a Hail Mary way to get these voters to send in that application in a timely fashion.
There is a question. I don't know if the earlier answer solved this, but it says there is no need to use a computer to do this. Correct? And that's incorrect. I don't know if you want to address that again.
Well, there is a way to apply online for a mail-in ballot, but we are providing them both the online, the address to do so. And
I think the question is for us, do we, the volunteers, need a computer? And the answer is that we have to print out the George Scott.
Yes.
And we have to print out the mail-in ballot application.
Well, that can all be done though. You can actually do that. If you don't have a printer, you can do that at Office Depot or Staples, or we have provided assistance to people as well. So there's a little bit of casual assistance going on. So please don't let any of those things, if you can't print, if you don't have money for materials, we have some sponsors, and so don't let a question of printing or obtaining a material stand in the way of signing up. We can work through those difficulties.
So Julie, who are the candidates? Another question, who are the candidates that we're focusing on in Pennsylvania for letter writing?
Well, basically, this is being done through the George Scott campaign.
Okay.
It will assist Brittany Rhoda in a House seat, and she is one of the people who is on the new Pennsylvania slate. It will also help a U.S. House candidate, Eugene DePasquale, and it will help Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Yeah, right.
So those are the candidates. This isn't a broad base, it's one district, Senate district, in which there are, it's sort of a nested arrangement of districts that are all important. So I think we should move on now. We'll take more questions at the end, and some of these questions, you know, if we don't get to them, there's also, you know, emailing and question and answer, but I don't want to take, you know, time away from the other teams. So let's go back to sharing screen. And go to Team North Carolina.
Okay, so here we are, Team North Carolina. Julie, are you going to change the?
Yeah.
Move the slides? Okay. So we have a number of activities that we're doing for Team North Carolina. We looked into a lot of them. There are many, many choices, and we've selected several after reviewing bunches. The reason why we're offering several is because this is what Jim Shelton has called a triple word score state. It's a triple battleground state. The Electoral College votes matter. There's a US Senate seat to be gotten, and there's both houses of the North Carolina legislature that could be flipped. Before I get to the activities, I want to say all of the activities that we're talking about are phone-based activities. And the reason that we focused on mainly phone canvassing is because when you can't do the in-person canvassing, you know, on the street kind of canvassing at people's homes, then studies show that if you have conversational, personal phone conversations, that you can be quite effective. It's a good campaign tool in increasing voter participation. So what we have, we're still back. We're back one slide. We have 3 types of phone activities, and a total of 5 activities that fit in these 3 types. And the 3 types are: one, where you're in a district and you're helping to motivate, instruct, inform about a particular state candidate. In the course of it, you hope to have reverse coattails effect where you elect up and down the slate. That's the first type. The second type is nonpartisan voter registration help. And the third type is partisan voter hotline assistance, where people call in with questions, where Democrats call in with questions. We also have several texting opportunities, but we consider them supplementary. That you pick a phone activity, and then you can supplement it with some of the texting possibilities. Next slide. Actually, before I get to this, I'm going to start talking about the activities we have. I just want to say that what we will do after today is we'll send an email out asking people to choose among the activities what they want to do, and Friday we'll have our first kind of kickoff meeting at noon, and where we can talk in greater detail about these activities. And we will have weekly debriefing sessions as well. And we'll also post things on 31st Street a calendar of activities and links to sign up for them, as well as websites that are important. Okay, so we have a total of 6 activities, 3 types of phone activities, and the texting. Within the group of phone activities where you are contacting people in a district about a candidate who's running in that district for the state legislature, we will be working with Flip North Carolina, which is an all-volunteer organization, and it is very effectively run. They view their mission as motivating and informing hard-to-reach left-leaning voters to vote Democratic up and down the ticket. So they focus on the legislative candidates, but it has expansive impact. When we call through Flip North Carolina, we are calling unreliable Democratic and liberal independent voters. You rarely have a conversation with anyone who is not sympathetic. Flip North Carolina uses an automatic dialer so that you are not endlessly yourself dialing phone calls. You are getting one connected phone call after another through this software called ThruTalk. And it's also used by other organizations. And it is very easy to learn. Next slide. So what Flip North Carolina does is they have 2-hour sessions, and the first hour of each session is training. It's a very good training. They do role playing, they demonstrate every aspect of ThruTalk. They talk about the candidate, the script, the district, so you are quite set to go when you start calling. And they have calls every Tuesday evening and Sunday afternoon. So they'll be starting, or we can be starting with them in early September. One last thing I want to say about the script with Flip North Carolina. Not only do they provide information about a local candidate, a state candidate, and some voting information, but they end the calls with, we can't do this ourselves. Can you talk to your friends, your neighbors, church members, and help us get this information out? And then they record when they find people who are willing to help. Next slide. So a second opportunity, which is really in a pilot stage, and is for people who have tried Flip North Carolina and want to do more work with them, is to take these people who have said that they want to use their own networks to expand the information and the motivation. So this is a pilot program to motivate voters you have contacted to network and expand our reach. And so we would be calling voters who have previously volunteered through an earlier call. And the idea is, it's just an idea at this stage, but the idea is to get them so engaged that you have an ongoing relationship with them and they continue to expand the network on the ground where they actually know North Carolinians who may not otherwise vote. We don't have clear training at this point, and the schedule is probably once a week. Next slide. The third opportunity in this category of reaching out within a district for state candidates is to canvass for Alan Wellens. He is one of 31st Street's supported candidates, and he's one of a few that Obama endorsed. He, for various reasons, doesn't have Flip North Carolina or a lot of field resources behind him, so we decided we would help him because he's got a large body of untapped Democrats in his district. So if we can motivate these voters, then not only could we help him get elected, but of course we can help up the ticket as well. The training would be the first of 2 hours each Sunday evening, and this is likely to start either September 6th or the 13th, so coming up soon. And then the 3 remaining activities, Vicki Shulkin is going to describe at this point.
Hello, I'm not muted, okay. We support You Can Vote because it does an excellent job of educating and registering voters, including those who have not been registered or voted reliably in the past. So it is completely nonpartisan, but the effect is to register the voters we are trying to reach. Now, you can't start calling until you have completed a 1-hour training session basically on the North Carolina election rules. The first one is this Thursday, which is before our kickoff, but then it's followed by, which you're welcome to go to, but it's followed by 2 more over the next week. After that, each calling session will include a 1-hour introduction that repeats the basic rules sort of in a summary form and explains the mechanics of making the calls. And once you're comfortable with the calling, you can just skip the introduction and simply start calling during their time period. That's when they have people who can answer your questions if you run into something you can't answer. So we'll be doing the You Can Vote phone canvassing on Saturdays from 1 to 3. I don't know why it looks like I'm looking at my feet, but it seems to do that no matter what I do. Let's see, we can go to the next slide, Julie.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you are there? Okay.
There.
You're there. Okay. The reason for doing the voter protection is that the rules can be confusing. The hotline will focus at first, right now, and has been up until now, answering questions about registration and voting methods. And then once the voting starts, the hotline will answer calls with questions about voting, but also any problems people may be having. They'll have a boiler room, they call it, of lawyers to send difficult things to. Now, it's more complex than other activities. There's 3 apps you need to install and use, but each one is fairly straightforward. And note that this is the only calling activity of the ones we've talked about that does not require that you have the Google Chrome browser. And I know iPads, I don't think can have a Google Chrome browser, so this would be a good one for iPad people. When you sign up, you're committing to put in the time to watch the training video and read the material they send you before the training session that's coming up on Wednesday, September 9th from 6 to 7. You sign up for 3-hour shifts and they'll be available every day of the week through the election, I guess. And then, next slide. Okay, texting is a tricky one. As Michael said, it's only supplemental, and the reason is it's just not very available easily. It's something we can do when it becomes available. I think it's partly because there's a limited number of numbers to text to for some reason compared to the phone calling, which seems to be limitless. And they get used up quickly. If you have a lot of people texting, suddenly they're done. So far, the open progress schedule, they have a calendar, but I've only seen it announcing it at the last minute. And so we don't know in advance. And sometimes I'll look in the morning and it won't be out yet, but later it will be. So that's when you're sort of on your own if you want to track that down. And then it's not on the slide, but there's also going to be, no, You Can Vote is on the slide. We don't have a schedule for You Can Vote texting, but I understand it will be at best sporadic. And the one that's not on the slide is Flip North Carolina also will have texting, but it's only going to be a few days, 3 or 4 in late September and some in mid-October. And priority will go to people who have previously done calling with Flip North Carolina. They'll get to sign up ahead of time, and then whatever's left over after they've signed up will be available to anybody else who wants. So, and also every one of those 3 uses a different method of texting. So it's a challenge, but I'm here. I can support you if you want to go hunting for that, but that's not going to be, it just won't work for a regular thing to do. Okay.
So now I'm going to just finish up. We wanted to give you some sense of what it's like to do the phone calls, and I don't know if Kate Sugarman is on.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, can you do your testimonial for having done the calls? And
Yes, so I have now done 2 sessions of Through Talk, the auto dialer for Flip NC. I've also done 2 for Pennsylvania for state legislature candidates. And, you know, I was extremely nervous about it. Whenever I meet a new technology, I start off with, I'm old and I can't do this. And one of the volunteers was sweet. He said, oh, we had a lady who remembers being in Dallas when Kennedy got shot and she became a pro. You'll be fine. And that gave me confidence. The first time I was really confused, and Flip NC gave me support. And then before I did the second session with Flip NC, they put me in a separate breakout room. I felt like I was in detention, but really I wasn't. And they answered every last question that I have. And honestly now, I feel like I can teach other people. I'm sold on Through Talk. I don't ever want to dial a phone again, because with Through Talk, you reach so many more people. You can have easily 10 good conversations in an hour. And my 2 closing thoughts are, you know, I used to want to canvass in person. Obviously, that's not an option now. But the 2 advantages to phone canvassing versus knocking on doors is no more barking dogs jumping in your face. And I actually knocked on doors for Hillary in Henderson County, North Carolina in 2016. And I saw way too many yard signs that said, I don't have a dog, I have a gun. So Through Talk and auto dialers are the way to go, and people can always reach me individually for questions, but I'm totally sold.
thanks. I wanted to add one thing. I've done a lot of hours for Flip North Carolina and You Can Vote. And I wanted to contrast, I think many of you will have had the experience of talking to friends and they lament what the situation is, but then they don't do anything. Well, in contrast to how frustrated you feel with that, when you are on these phone calls with a person who's a stranger and whose life experience is probably extremely different than yours, and you are together lamenting the situation, and then that person says, as one did, I'm going to go down to Walmart and talk to every cashier and get every cashier to vote. And another person said to me, I promise you, I will get 1 new voter every day, and on and on. So the high from doing that is so great that it overrides whatever kind of hesitation you have about doing this. On next steps, I talked about that in the beginning, that we'll follow up tomorrow or Tuesday with an email. And so I think at this point, if you haven't signed, we can go to the next slide. You can sign up for Team North Carolina tonight through Julie's email, or if you're not on the list, contact Julie directly. And then I don't know if we have any time for questions.
Let's take 1 or 2 now, and then reserve questions for the end. So here's a question. You sold us on this method of calling, but which of the many North Carolina projects is Through Talk used in, I guess is the question.
It's used in Flip North Carolina and You Can Vote. You Can Vote is the voter registration. Both of them use Through Talk. Wellens probably will be using a different dialer.
Here's a comment. I enthusiastically concur with Kate from Veronica Stoddard endorsing automatic dialing. Are there any other training sessions for voter protection? We'll get into some alternatives if you can't make these. If you can't make a session, just let the team sign up let the team captain know we'll find alternatives. And then there's a last question, just before the end, then we'll answer some more. Can you say more about, who is the voter protection with? Who offers that hotline?
That's the
Democrats.
Vicky, can you?
Yeah, the North Carolina Democratic Party.
Yeah, the Democratic Party hotline. Okay, so we're going to move on. We'll go back to as many questions as we can at the end. So now we're going to go to Team Iowa and Adele.
Okay.
Go down.
So, okay. So, Iowa is a newer focus for 31st Street. For this election cycle, we picked Iowa, and we've been doing fundraising, and we've raised, I think, a little less than 400,000. And so we have less context in Iowa, but it certainly became clear that Teresa Greenfield, who's running for Senate, has a real strong possibility. I was on a training with her campaign last week, and they were talking about after the derecho, particularly when there was very little funding to the cities that were hit, that Joni Ernst, who's the incumbent, has less and less popular. One person said even Republicans don't like her. So we picked, 31st Street, we picked Teresa Greenfield to phone bank for. And what has happened is, I started with the Democratic, with the Greenfield campaign, and then I found through Jim Shelton, Flip the West. And that's the group that we will work with. And they work differently than the campaign. They are an organization that works with groups, and we're a group, so we're perfect for them. They work with unions, Planned Parenthood, different nonprofits, and they set up the training. And so their goal is to support Teresa Greenfield and to get people that we phone bank for to get an absentee ballot. At this point, their list that we'll be calling are left-leaning Democrats in the second congressional district. That will change as we go through the election cycle. They really get updated information every week. You can do the next slide. So in talking with Noah in Berkeley, he is going to be the trainer for Team Iowa. And just for the first training, we selected Tuesday, September 8th. And we could actually pick a 2-hour cycle. It can't start before 5 Central Time. It has to end by 9. And I can work with Noah and my team on that. But that's the first training. If you miss that training, there will be other trainings. But how this training is going to work, and all the others, is that you go onto a Zoom call that could have other groups besides ours. But then after the introduction, you go into your own room, and it will be all 31st Street members. And we will have our questions, we'll get the help we need, and we'll really work as a group. Once once we've had that part of the training, you then can immediately go into calling up using Call Hub. Call Hub does require Chrome browser, and it does require computer. You cannot use an iPad. There will be other times during the week that you can phone bank once you've gotten trained. And the other thing I really, really liked, besides really liking Noah, is they will provide support till we feel independent. So after we start calling, someone will be in the main Zoom, breakout room, and you can move over there if you have a question right at the last second about something. So they will always have somebody right there for us. And they also have a specific person on technology there until we feel like we have our own technology person and we're up to speed. In addition, they provide require weekly meetings with the team leader, maybe the technology person, with them, so they can really update us about what's happening in the field, so then we can update all of you via email. So I think it's a very dynamic, moving program. Julie, next slide. So as I was saying, so in the beginning, you'll get an information sheet on Greenfield, and you'll get a weekly script, and that can change as issues in Iowa change, but not dramatically. It's not like you'll have to learn a totally new script. And we'll spend time talking about the background to why the change is. So they want to give us weekly information before we call that might be important, or they'll give it to me and I'll pass it on to you. So their goals are very strategic and fluid, and they, you know, the campaign, Teresa Greenfield's campaign is wonderful, but they're really focusing on the campaign and all the issues that go with it. And Flip the West is focusing on groups, they're focusing on us, and they're focusing on phone banking. So their mission is much more directed at what we want to do. Next slide. So the resources will be posted on 31st Street. There's a resource area, which will have the Greenfield information. It'll have anything that I get from Flip the West ongoing, I will put up there, and any weekly updates that I get. In addition, as in all the groups, we've really decided to provide a weekly debriefing that is obviously voluntary, but a place to come together and kind of talk about what the questions are, what the problems are, what the successes are. We're trying to really create a team, and in order to be a team, you sort of have to be together as much as you can be. That's realistic. That time I haven't picked, and I'm certainly, once we get started, I'm flexible. Like maybe we should do a weekend. It certainly won't be, I certainly don't know exactly what time that will be. But the training time and the phone banking time, my understanding, although John Medaley and I will be meeting with Noah again, is going to be Tuesdays. So if that's not a day that works, please let me know. Don't let that stop your interest in Iowa, because I will then be able to work with Flip the West on accommodating that in some way, if possible. I guess now, question. Oh yeah, so there's the link if you want to sign up and work with Team Iowa. Are there any questions?
Someone asked if they can get the slides.
Someone asked about the slides, and those will be sent out, so don't worry about that. Other questions, just a couple for Iowa. I don't see any right now.
Okay, well, that's good.
But there may be some.
Yeah.
And I want to just sort of now we're going to go to Team Alaska, which is also going to be partnering with Flip the West. So much of what Adele laid out is sort of the general modus operandi working with that group, which sounds like a fabulous group, is going to be true on Team Alaska. So John, if you can just sort of talk about what's different about Team Alaska as you begin to talk now.
Okay, sure. Yeah, as you say, we will be partnering with Flip the West, and a lot of what Adele said will hold true for us. They sound like a good group, and it should work well. Next slide, Julie.
This is such a pretty one.
Yeah, lovely. So
That slide.
Okay, so it is critical to flip the Senate. Imagine waking up on November 4th to find that Biden has won, but Republicans still control the Senate. They could block Biden's Supreme Court and cabinet picks, and his legislative agenda would go up in smoke. Think expansion of health care, action on climate change, or passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and so much more. So in Alaska, we have a good chance to flip a Senate seat. The state has only 588,000 voters, a much smaller number than most states, and the margin of victory or defeat is very likely to be small. In fact, in the 2014 Senate election, the margin of victory was just 6,000 votes. So each voter we reach is going to make a big difference. So that's why, I'm so enthusiastic about supporting Al Gross. And by the way, we did have a fundraiser for him at the beginning of August. We raised $168,000 so far. So this is a new involvement, but something that we are in on. Go back, Julie. So Al Gross is the candidate to flip that seat. He's a lifelong Alaskan and an orthopedist who paid his way through college and med school as a commercial fisherman. He shot a grizzly bear in self-defense. His Alaska story resonates with Alaskans. He has a well-organized campaign. He started his ad campaign a few weeks ago, which has driven up his name recognition and favorability by a lot. He supports the ACA, a Medicare public option, and a woman's right to choose. His opponent, Trumpist Senator Dan Sullivan, opposes them all. Gross opposes the environmentally devastating Pebble Mine project. Sullivan calls environmentalists climate change alarmists. So the stakes couldn't be higher. Next slide. So as far as who we call, this will be selected by Flip the West. And for example, one of the groups that they're calling this week or this past week is Democratic voters and Democratic-leaning independent voters who haven't requested a ballot. So in other words, they're very precisely targeting who they're going to call, and that will change from week to week. It might be a different area, it might be a different type of voter, but they seem to know a lot, and so we're going to rely on them. So the weekly schedule, as Adele said, we'll be working with Flip the West. We use an auto dialer call hub, and you will need Chrome and a computer for it. We can call as a group, and here are a couple of times when we can call. I'd point out, by the way, that Alaska time is 4 hours earlier than Eastern time. So when it's noon in DC, it's 8 a.m. in Alaska. So that's the reason why we're skewing on the late side with our calls. If you're not able to meet any of these times to call as a group, we can also call. You can also call individually, not as part of a group with Flip the West. So our first calls will be September 9 and 12. I have to figure out about an orientation session. I'm not sure that we'll have a separate one or if it will be sort of as part of the initial calls. And then there'll be a debriefing after that. Next slide, Julie. And so one nice thing about Flip the West is that they provide training, someone to run through the script, someone to answer questions, and also you can go out of the Zoom room into another room if you need some additional technical support. So this seems to be like a very good system. They have, I took a look at the number of partners. It must be 100 groups partnering with them, maybe more. So they're really well familiar with what they're doing and very impressive. I also had an opportunity to speak with Noah, just like Adele did, and he's really on top of things. As Adele said, there will be some material that Flip the West provides. In addition, I'm going to post a few things as well. A statement by Al Gross, taken from his website on why he's running. Then something I put together on the importance of electing Al. And then a few key links, things like his homepage, a few of his ads. And by the way, the Lincoln Project is dropping $1 million to run ads in Alaska in favor of Gross. So I put a link to one of their ads as well. So I hope that you will consider joining this. Thank you so much.
So John, we have a question here. So the Alaska pitch is compelling, Lynn Holbein says. She feels her life experiences are so different than a Native Alaskan. Does it resources make a difference? I know you've done some calling in Alaska, so what did you feel?
Well, first of all, I doubt that we'll be calling Native Alaskans. We might, but I did call to some people in I guess Fairbanks and out in the field. I had quite a few good conversations. It's not like we're going to be calling Republicans. And there were actually quite a few people I spoke with who were very glad that Democrats were calling them. As far as Native Alaskans, who a lot of whom live in remote rural areas of this immensely vast state. One of the people on the Gross campaign staff, Michelle Spark, is an Alaska Native, and she's organizing a campaign for Alaska Natives. And they, I think, a lot of them are very eager to support a Democrat. The majority of them are in favor. Not everyone, but the majority of them. So don't worry about that. Of course, our life experiences are going to be different, but that doesn't seem like a problem at all.
Okay, and there's a question here that applies to all the teams, really. It's directed to you, John, about the resources, but I'm just going to answer it in general with regard to all the teams. The question was, will these resources only be posted on the website, or will they be sent to the team members? I think it's a combination. Your team captain will email you materials that you really need for training and maybe some supplemental background material, voter education, whatever, and there'll be others that are just posted on the website. But that's the purpose of having smaller groups. You'll get emails. It'll be easier to communicate and share materials and take care of information you find lacking and remedy that. So, at this point, I would just like to make one closing comment, and then we'll go to just more questions if you have them about any of the teams. My comment is that I think you can tell from the presentations how much time and thought has gone into the process of selecting these activities in battleground states for the right candidates. I mean, this is not just an indiscriminate, oh, this looks good, or that looks good, or this is convenient, or whatever. We've really put a lot of thought into finding groups that we see eye to eye on in terms of priorities, and just to sort of give you a sense of how much compatibility there is, which really makes a difference in the nature of the script, in the nature of the training, in the way you feel respected as volunteers, all those things. It really affects that. Michael Friedman is now sort of the author of the script that Flip NC is using in its calls. I just got an email that they are testing out that script right now with TrueTalk. And it's, the foundation was, of course, what Flip NC needed to say, but Michael has used the sort of 31st Street's perspective, her own accumulated knowledge of how to reach voters and have an impactful interchange with them to refine their script in a way that they were just overjoyed with. And that is really what helps make the experience something. When you come away from, I think, one of these activities, you're going to feel like, yeah, this feels like what a 31st Street member with a 31st Street perspective would be doing. It's going to fit. These things are going to fit. So there's a learning curve. There's technology. But remember, we learned minivan to go out door to door. And everybody in the end, I think, pretty much decided it was worth it. And you heard Kate say that she'll never go back. Kate Sugarman will never go back to self-dialing for calls, and that says something. So thank you very much for joining. We have recorded this, and we'll get the recording up on our YouTube channel. There will be slides that we'll make available. The email you get tonight has information, and then there's always now, once you sign up, even if you're, a little bit iffy, sign up, start to get the emails, and then you can go from there. So let's go to some more questions. But as I said, if you're welcome to drop off, you've learned what you need to learn. And thanks very much for joining us. Okay, so here's one. From Ellen Ensel, does 31st Street coordinate with other groups during this type of outreach so the same voters are not overwhelmed with calls and will ignore them? I don't even know if coordination is possible. And as Jim Sheldon said when this question came up on Sunday, Jim, would you like to have what did you say then that you'll repeat now?
Well, I think in the first instance, like Flip the West has got a list that they're going through in a systematic way.
Can you talk a little louder, Jim?
Yeah, the people that are running these things, like Flip the West or Flip NC, they've got their list that they're running through. Now, there may be other groups, but the other thing is there's no big risk of some great density of, I only wish that these voters would get multiple calls. And in fact, the literature is that when they, especially low turnout voters, when they get more calls, it actually helps. Over.
Can I say
Yes,
something,
yeah.
Julie? So when I talked to Noah about this, they really are very strategic. So they actually, in the middle of a campaign, when they feel that they've saturated a state, they may move to another state, and they've already done that. And so it'll be always in the West, but they're paying attention to the information, the data they get from calling people. And I'll find out more as we work with them.
Okay, here's a question. It's a good general question from Jane Stevens. How will calling as a team work as opposed to calling individually? Let me just present a mental picture of that, and then Adele, you can chime in if I've missed anything.
Okay.
Typically, when you call, when you go on to one of these calls, you start it in on a Zoom session, just like this, and then you are given a login to a calling system. And some people leave a Zoom open for asking questions of the sponsoring group or technical assistants, or even there could be a member of their own group. Or they just log off of the Zoom and make their calls and then log back onto the Zoom if there's, say, some kind of discussion afterwards, as some of these groups do. When you're on the Zoom, as a team member, you'll see other people from your group. There might even be a presentation from your team captain, as well as, say, Flip NC or Flip the West. So, and then there's going to be the additional supplemental training that's only for the team. And then there is the briefing. Adele.
So how I understand this is a little slight, it's almost like what you said. So you come on as a group and you get your training and you hear from the leader of Flip the West and from the team leader. Then there's a way, so you're just in your group with 31st Street, then there's a way to mute your Zoom and go right in to Call Hub and start, so you would see other people. Well, that's my understanding, that you would still be in that Zoom room and you do your Call Hub work, because if you want to leave and talk to someone for technical problems, you're already in Zoom and you can just go into the main room, and they're going to teach us how to do that. So I thought the beauty of it is you always have backup right there. There's a way to call right from the Zoom room.
And it's familiar faces you see, or at least a share of them. There might be other people that you don't recognize, but there should be some people you recognize.
No, it's just, no, the room will be just 31st Street.
Well, it depends. In Flip NC, it won't be.
Oh, okay, well.
So, and you can vote, it won't be. So it will vary, but there will be friendly faces you recognize. John.
One other thing, Julie and Adele, about Flip the West is the way they structure it is you have your training and then you call for an hour, but after an hour you come back and take a break together, and so people can chat, and so that helps to form a group, and then you go back and make some more calls. Over.
Okay. Now, what are we now at this point? I think we're down to small enough group here that we can just have people sort of call out their questions. And if we miss something in the chat that didn't get asked, this is the time for you to just ask it, you know, orally. So are there other questions that you'd like to pose?
Yes, I have a question. This is
Go ahead,
Betsy Johnson. So Julie, are we supposed to email you about any of these signups? And won't that be kind of a bottleneck if that's the case?
The signups, well, the signups for each of the teams do not come to me as an email. There is a link for each, a separate link for each of the teams in the email that most people are already getting. My email is for those people who just heard about this, somebody passed along word, they're interested in getting involved. They haven't been getting my Sunday evening emails. They won't be getting it unless they write to me and say, I want to get it. That's what my email is for. You're right, but no, don't worry.
Okay, well, you can disregard my email then.
Oh, okay. Okay. You're already getting it. That's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm already getting it.
Okay, what other questions have you got?
Julie, there was a question in the chat about what phone number shows up when you're making calls, and sort of answered in the chat, but it's not your phone number that's going to show up.
That's a good question, Ren. Yes, that's what one of the functions of the automatic dialer is. It speeds up the dialing. That if somebody doesn't pick up the phone, you don't know it. You only know when they do pick it up, but it's not your phone number that's shown.
That's true for texting as well.
Right, right. And Labriola, you've got a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you're
Yes. Yes. This is just a general question. Are we going to have big meetings like this again? And if so, is there a way, if there is a glitch, that you will have, since you don't have to be a 31st Street Swing member to be part of the virtual field work, if there's a glitch, will you have a master email list, and should everybody be on that master email list so you can get the new link in case there's a glitch? Or are we just going to break into small groups and that won't be an issue?
There won't be, I don't think, a large meeting of all the teams or people interested in the teams. Okay. Each team will have a list of people, or, you know, in their emails. We should have been able to have 500 people on this call, so it's not clear what happened, but we'll straighten it out. That's, you know,
okay.
I just don't know what to say, but it shouldn't be an issue, and in those smaller meetings, the team captain should know everybody, and if something were to happen, we could send out an email to everybody.
Okay.
It's just,
so people who couldn't get into this meeting, they should just sign up and the smaller groups will explain what's happening. Would that be fair to say?
yeah.
Yes.
And
Definitely.
there's always going to be a Sunday email that has the composite of the information, most of it. It won't, you know, we're not going to list resources for a team in the Sunday email, but the activities and the major signups will be in that Sunday email if they're getting that. And yeah, and then this will be posted on our YouTube channel, which people can access. You know, I don't, you know, we'll try every which way to not have it happen again and connect people with what they need to know.
So hi, this is Roberta. Hi. I don't have a question, but just want to say two things. First, like Kate Sugarman, I was petrified about making calls. I needed a lot of hand holding. I didn't want to do it. But because you all encouraged us so much and just said, you know, 1 or 2 hours a week, I thought, I can do this. And so I actually did it yesterday with You Can Vote, and that's cold calling people to get them to register. And the training, the 1 hour before making the calls, that training was excellent in terms of how to use the tool and just sort of even giving practical advice. Like, for example, they said a lot of people are going to hang up on you, which happened. You know, a lot of people will just, you know, say I'm not interested and they hang up, but then you don't get a lot of positive situations, but you get, I sent links to register voters to 2 people. And then I had a lot of people say they were registered and confirm that and double check, and they were very appreciative. And I would say generally people were surprisingly nice. So I did it once. Now that I've done it once, so to some extent you have to jump in and just try it. But the other thing I wanted to say about the calling tool is you can pace yourself. It's not like these calls are coming in and you're stuck. You can stop.
Right.
And, you know, and then they give you, you know, you can practice the script, and I did it over and over again myself till I felt comfortable, and then you start, you can stop. So it's not like it's rushing at you and you you can't control it. So that's just another testimonial. I thought it made me feel like, okay, it was great, and it was a good experience. So thank you for encouraging me, 31st Street. Second thing I wanted to say is thank you, all of you, 31st Street and everybody, for doing this presentation. It's very helpful to me, and I know it's a lot of work for you all, and so just thank you. That's it. Over.
Oh, thank you. And I have to just say, Roberta, you are a trooper, because the You Can Vote, as you may have noticed in Michael's presentation, involves an hour of voter education that is pretty fast-paced, connected to a lot of resources, and then you do the 2-hour session with the actual calling. And it can be a tough audience. You have exactly the right perspective, though. If 2 people actually move towards registration, that is phenomenal. That is in an hour, you have moved mountains. And that's the way you should be thinking about it. It's hard to think about it that way. It feels like it should be a lot more than that, but it's not, and it's not going to be, and that's great. And that is, I think, the hardest activity we've got listed, but probably the most important. I think the voter protection also, because you can help a couple people solve a concrete problem they want to solve so they can vote. That's really important too. But those things can be tough. You saw the preparation as well on the voter protection. A lot of 3 apps, training, this, that, 3-hour shifts. Mm-hmm. I think what could happen in those 3 hours. And so, you know, I'm very glad. I'm just so glad that you pointed it out, and I really hope people will try that. You can go just, and are you signed up for Team North Carolina?
Who, me?
Yeah, Roberta.
Oh, yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, good, because you can be a resource for other people who are
right
when they take.
Yeah. Oh, I'm happy to. If anybody has any questions about using the tool or what to say or anything, I'm happy to help out.
So to the question of about what difference will it make when you're on a team? Here's one of the things that could happen. If you know that Roberta is on your team doing that, You Can Vote, and you sign up for that and you haven't done it, when you see her there and know that she is available, you can even exchange, you know, emails to or phone numbers to text during the session, because you can take a break. Mm-hmm. You can talk about it afterwards at the team debriefing, or, you know, have an offline conversation. That's what the team brings. And, you know, it really is a feeling you're not, you know, sure, you're there with supportive people, but it will make a difference to have a familiar face.
Julie?
Yeah.
We are probably going to have something you can check off when you're signing up about whether you would be if you know something and you're available to answer people's questions. So we'll sort of develop a cadre of people who know how to do the things. Also, I just throw in one more thing, which is if you're nervous about calling, I don't think in any of my calls was anybody ever outright nasty or mean. Texting, you do get that, but calls, people don't say anything unpleasant.
Yeah. So there's a question here from Ken Kuski. What are the next steps for letter writing in Pennsylvania? So I think, Ken, you've signed up, and you should have by now gotten an email from Tom Patterson with information on the first team orientation on September 8th for that team. And we won't start the kickoff with the materials until September 8th. So that email should come, as it will come to all people who sign up for a team, an organizing email with all this specific information. Okay, any last questions?